Okay, y'all should see that. So that way I don't forget to do it, which is exciting. Have an awkward
Bree,
start.
if you want to make somebody else a co-host, or we could let people in for you.
Are you volunteering?
Yes.
Great. I'll do that. I'm going to make you a co-host, Tina.
All right.
Thank you. If you would let people in, that would be lovely. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is All on the Line, North Carolina. It's our monthly statewide meeting. This meeting is being recorded. My name is Bree Bro. I'm the, I can't say this new title. I'm the East Regional Manager focusing on North Carolina. Like, my title is East Regional Manager, but I'm working on North Carolina. So I really feel like we got to get that title nailed down. But anyway, I'm still the All on the Line organizer for North Carolina is what it boils down to. It is wonderful to see all of y'all here. In case we've got some new folks, I see a lot of familiar names and faces, which is awesome. For anybody who might be joining the space for the first time, or just as a reminder, we are a 501c4 campaign, and we exist to bring citizens across issues together to win fair maps in the previous redistricting cycle, which is now technically over, but we also raise awareness about the harmful impacts of gerrymandering on our policymaking. We defend democratic ideals and really try to increase grassroots engagement. And we are in the beyond right now. So that's where we are. If folks would, I'd like to invite everyone to just put in the chat so that we know who's in the space and we can all sort of like meet each other, even though we won't go around and do live introductions. Just put your name, where you're joining from, if you are a part of any other organizations that you want to lift up into the space. And just as a reminder for folks coming in, this meeting is being recorded. Again, my name is Bree Bro. I'm the North Carolina organizer with All on the Line. Today we're just going to walk through, kind of go over where things stand right now. We had a really interesting conversation last time with our deputy litigation director, Arthur, with the NRF about the independent state legislature theory. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and also just kind of where we are with redistricting and the upcoming election. And then I'm very excited to be able to share some great events that we've got coming up and some programming. And then I want to talk with y'all about some of the things we would like to do, and sort of I'd like to gauge some y'all's interest basically. And we'll also be putting out a newsletter tomorrow or Monday to, for folks who couldn't join the call. And then we've got some time to just chat, ask questions at the end. And you're also welcome to stop me anytime and put questions in the chat as well. Okay, so kind of where we are just right now as a recap, recentering. It's been a long summer. A lot has happened. A lot is happening. We have congressional maps currently that will be in play for 2022. Those maps are, by most estimations, the fairest that we've had in North Carolina in a very long time. They are partisan balanced, so they are likely to elect a congressional delegation that looks like the state of North Carolina. I'll show you that map in just a minute. I just wanted to drop a link in the chat. Those maps were drawn by special masters appointed by the court after the North Carolina Supreme Court found them to be found the original maps that were drawn by the legislature to be unconstitutional partisan gerrymanders. So they are interim maps, meaning that they can be redrawn, and they are likely to be redrawn after this election. The House Speaker, the North Carolina House Speaker, Tim Moore, said was reported as saying that they may well take up those maps in the lame duck session. So that is definitely something that we're tracking very closely and planning for, that the legislature may redraw the congressional maps after the election, pretty soon after the election. Knowing the legislature, it could be very soon. It could be, they could try to rush it through, especially if Republicans lose a majority in either chamber. Then they are very likely to try to get new maps through before the new legislature is seated. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out, that those are likely to be redrawn. The other thing that we're tracking is, of course, Harper v. Moore, which is the new iteration of the Harper v. Hall, which is the redistricting case, the redistricting case out of North Carolina that was lifted up to the U.S. Supreme Court by the North Carolina General Assembly. That's the case where North Carolina Republicans are arguing a radical theory called the independent state legislature theory, or scam, or what did Art call it last time? Anyway, it's a radical theory that says that state courts cannot weigh in on matters involving federal elections. It's a provision, it's based on a provision of the Elections Clause. And North Carolina's politicians, this is from an article that I'll drop in the link in a second, because it's really important to know, like, there's a lot of gloom and doom about this theory. It is potentially very devastating to our system of checks and balances. But the North Carolina legislators focus on the clause that says that the legislature of each state shall regulate the time, place, and manner of congressional elections. But there's an article that I'll drop in the chat now that points out that the second part of that clause says that authorizes Congress to override any state policies about congressional elections with which it disagrees. So it says Congress may at any time make or alter such regulations. I'm pointing that out because the outcome of our congressional elections in the midterms could potentially impact, whether the Supreme Court would even, what they would do in this case, because theoretically, Congress could pass a law saying that that basically I want to say this correctly, so let me just check my notes here. They could pass a statute ratifying all state regulations of congressional elections as long as they're compliant with state constitutions. So I just wanted to point that out because this is not like definitely going to happen. There's a lot of different ways the court could rule that would have varying implications, and there are things that Congress can do. So just to say, as everyone knows, the 2022 elections are incredibly important nationwide and here in North Carolina. The third thing that I want to just mention in terms of our landscape right now is that the North Carolina Senate map is also being challenged in court. It's kind of easy to forget about that because at the, back when all of the litigation was being heard and decided at the North Carolina Supreme Court, there was, an effort from both Republicans and the plaintiffs in the case to stay the Senate maps and the congressional maps, and the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to run this election under these maps. But that didn't mean that the maps couldn't be challenged. So the Senate map is still being challenged by the plaintiff, by the folks representing the plaintiffs. The congressional map is being challenged by the Republicans. So the National Redistricting Foundation is representing, is one of the organizations representing plaintiffs, and they're basically arguing that the lower court misapplied the standards of evaluation, and that that Senate map is also an outlier, that it doesn't meet the metrics that the North Carolina Supreme Court laid out, and that they shouldn't have accepted that map. These things, again, what happens with that case will, could be affected by who was elected to the North Carolina Supreme Court this term, and also, how the legislative races turn out. So on that note, I just wanted to, take a look. I know folks are really interested in the maps, and just point out that this map is, we've all seen this map now. This is the current congressional map. The districts that are circled in red are the ones that are likely to be the closest districts, that they are the most competitive districts in the state. All of the other districts, there's a couple that are, lean towards Democrats, lean towards Republicans, but are, pretty likely to go one way or the other. But District 13, which is that southern part of Wake County, all of Johnston County, part of Harnett, and part of Wayne, is a very close district. We have candidates in that race. Bo Hines is the Republican, Wiley Nickel is the Democrat. And then District 1 is that northeastern North Carolina district. It's largely the district that G.K. Butterfield represented. He's retiring, so that is an open seat. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that the Republican is Sandy Smith, but I might be mixing that up with a legislative race. Is that right? Okay, I see Minerva shaking her head, yes. And then Don Davis. Okay, thank you.
And Don Davis.
And Don Davis is the Democrat who's running there. That seat is, appears to be lean Democrat, but a lot of that area has been trending towards Republicans. And so because, it is an open seat, you don't have that incumbent effect. I definitely consider that to be a pretty competitive seat, and we'll need to keep that in mind. So the Senate map is here just as a refresher. There are, again, there are some seats that are, in both of these maps, most of the seats are very likely to elect a Republican or a Democrat, one or the other. There are some lean seats, and then there are 4 or 5 really toss-up seats. I just wanted to mention where the real competitive seats are in this map. And this is just based on kind of, this is not a formal analysis. This is just based on kind of a back of the envelope, looking at how statewide candidates did in these districts. But the very close races it appears on this map are District 3, which is this blue district up in the northeastern part of the state. District 7, which is basically almost all of New Hanover County down here in the southeastern part of the state. And then Districts 17, which is southern Wake County, and 18, which is northern Wake County and all of Granville County. And then also in southern Mecklenburg County, District 42 is also a very, appears to be a very competitive seat. And the House map, again, the other thing I just wanted to say about the Senate map is that basically of the ones I listed, the 5 districts that I listed, Democrats would need to win all but one of those to break a supermajority. So Republicans have a better shot of winning a supermajority in the Senate than they do in the House. In the House, the most competitive districts are District 9. This is in no particular order. Our District 9 in Pitt County, District 24 in Wilson County, District 25, which is most of Nash County, 35, which is in northern Wake County, 48, which is in Scotland and Hoke County, 63 in Alamance County, 73 in Cabarrus County, and 103 in South Mecklenburg. Democrats need to win all of the seats that lean Democratic, which I didn't mention, and at least 3 of the seats I did mention of the real competitive seats in order for Republicans not to have a supermajority. So Republicans would need to win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those competitive, 5 out of 8 of the most competitive, the real toss-ups to get a supermajority there. So obviously, the elections at, every single level of the ballot are incredibly important. I know that I'm preaching to the choir in this crowd about that, but we are going to be doing, All on the Line is going to really be focused on just educating voters, sharing information, making sure that people are aware of the importance of the Supreme Court races. A lot of folks, don't pay that close attention to judicial races. So that's going to be our focus. But I just wanted to, share the information about the election generally, make sure everybody, I know folks on this call generally know, but this is a slide that just is a refresher. I mean, we're getting close. We start programming on, Supreme Court education about the Supreme Court race next month. I've got some events I'll share, and then we'll work on that, August, September, and then, early voting starts in October. So these are the important dates to keep in mind for the upcoming election. We've got mail-in ballots. We'll go out September 9th. And then the voter registration deadline is Friday, October 14th. You can still register and vote at One Stop Early Voting, of course, but not on election day. Any questions about that or anything like that? I also just wanted to flag or mention for folks that one of the most important things that people can be doing right now is, checking your own voter registration. And if folks have seen me in other spaces talk about this, you can also check your friends and family's voter registration and their voting record. So if you've got folks that that you're friends with or in your family who don't typically vote in midterms, you can find that out on the North Carolina Board of Election website. And I'm really, we're going to be doing a lot of voter education, but this is something that, knowing how people in your life are voting and knowing who to reach out to talk about, if people are registered, if they've moved, making sure that they update their registration, and then talking with folks about, especially the races that are further down the ballot that people might not be as aware of, is really important. I
agree. We had a question in the chat.
Yeah,
from Helen.
Yeah. Awesome, Helen. That is super interesting. So we have a couple of panels coming up, which I'll share in just a minute, where in both cases, we have folks from the reproductive rights world who are going to talk about how reproductive rights connect to the Supreme Court races. We're also doing that kind of research in our All on the Line National right now, and we're going to be working on a toolkit and so that we could talk with folks about different issues and how they relate to the Supreme Court. That is awesome that you had 400 people in Moore County coming out in support of repo rights. And we definitely want to be talking with voters, you know, who care about that issue and making sure that they vote in the whole ballot, right? That they vote in that race. So another thing that I have learned looking at the 2020 election results was that, and I'm always, you know, I'm always a little anxious about talking about numbers because I'm so like, I get so confused in my head. But when we were looking at it, someone who pays a lot of attention to politics said this to me, and I looked at it, and it looked like it's true that in the most populous counties in North Carolina, there were, so, you know, Sherry Beasley lost the Supreme Court race by like 401 votes. Well, in the like 7 most populous counties in North Carolina, there were at least 1,000 people in each of those counties who voted but didn't vote in that race. So, you know, that's wild, right? But people don't, if people don't know the stakes and they don't know about the candidates, some people aren't going to vote in it. So one of the things, Helen, to your point, I'm talking with some folks at Pro-Choice NC about doing some phone banking, calling people who have, you know, participated in those kinds of events. And I'd love to talk to you about putting me in touch with the person who, you know, organized that event, because that's the kind of folks I think we need to be, you know, talking to, are folks that are either newly activated around the issue around Dobbs and reproductive rights, and anybody really who cares deeply about any specific issue, because they all, like, everything comes back to the maps. I mean, they all can be affected by who sits on the Supreme Court, because it's the last sort of line of defense of protecting people's rights. So yeah, Helen, let's talk offline about that. I'd love to connect about that. I gotcha. Okay.
And I think Karen had her hand up. I don't know if that's still the case.
Karen, were you just telling me that
I was, both, thank you. The whole voter ID thing, that's still stuck in the courts, right? So we're not anticipating for midterms that anybody needs to worry about ID.
That's correct.
Is that true? Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up, though. I meant to say that. That is true. There is not, photo ID is not required in this election as of right now. Okay. Okay, so we have been hard at work here. All on the Line is partnering with some other organizations on a couple of events coming up, and you know, folks on this call have ideas for other events. We are definitely open to more. I would like to put together at least one more event to, you know, engage with folks in North Carolina, bring in some new people. I have a few ideas and I'd love to hear other ideas. But the 2 events that we have definitely already coming up. One is on August 11th. This is an in-person event in Fayetteville. It's in partnership with, I don't know if Michael Haywood's on the call here, but he's been a big supporter of All on the Line. He comes to these meetings, and y'all might know him. And he works with a couple of different organizations in Fayetteville, including the African American Caucus and Cape Fear Indivisible. So we're partnering with them, as well as Fayetteville PACT, which is the Police Accountability Task Force in Fayetteville, and putting on an in-person event. It's August 11th. It is at a place called Volta Space, and we've got a great panel that's going to be led by a board member with Fayetteville PACT, and you know, we're going to have some stories about, you know, how voters have you know, made a difference in the past. We've got a professor who was at NCA&T when students there really, you know, rose up around the NCA&T being gerrymandered. He's going to share a story about that. And then we are also going to hear from someone from Planned Parenthood South Atlantic, and also the author Billy Corrier, who wrote Usurpers, which is a book about how North Carolina voters really fought off an attempt by the GOP to take over the courts in the last decade. So that'll be a really good event. If anybody here, knows folks in the Fayetteville area, in Cumberland County, or the surrounding areas who might want to attend, please share this with them. I'm trying to get back to my chat here. There's a mobilize for that event, and all this will go out in a newsletter that y'all will get tomorrow or Monday. August 18th, we've got our next statewide meeting. That's just already on the calendar. There may be stuff between now and then as well, but these are just things that I know about at this moment. And then August 23rd, we are partnering with Indivisible Guilford County and the New North Carolina Project on a virtual judicial forum, basically like a town hall. Again, we're not having the candidates on, we're having people who can talk about, we're having, folks who can talk about how the court system works in North Carolina, what people should be looking for in a judge that they vote for, or a Supreme Court justice, as well as folks from organizations like, in this case, I think we're going to have someone from Pro-Choice NC, and some others who can talk about how the Supreme Court affects different issues that people care about. It should be a good event. We're going to really start promoting that in the next few days. So again, please, share it with your networks, with your organizations. We're also co-hosting with the same organizations, kind of as a bookend to that event, a screening of Selma in Greensboro at a library. So if you're in Guilford County, we would love to see you there. And then we are partnering with the Civic Center for a high school, all on the line national. This is like a sort of a thing that National is doing, our National is doing. Partnering with the Civic Center on, they are producing a high school voter registration week, and they have a whole very cool toolkit available for, it's really geared like for high school students to run. But I'm mentioning it here because I know there are folks who either maybe have high school students or work with high school students who might be interested in this. We should be getting more information about how we can support it. But this is a, obviously young voter turnout is critical, and can make a huge difference if we could get 18 to 24-year-olds and even up, but young folks voting in this election. There is a ton at stake for them. So that's another thing that we're doing. And if anyone's interested in hearing more about that, I'm happy to put you in touch directly with the folks running that. Yes, it will. I have to check on the toolkit. I can definitely send it to you, Tina. I know you work with folks. I can send that to you. I'm not sure. I think that the toolkit that I saw is for partners, which I think means like us, but I'll double check and see if I don't see why I wouldn't be able to share that widely. And then the last thing to mention is I have been trying to figure out, just capacity wise, what we can do, what all on the line volunteers can do in terms of actual, like direct kind of voter outreach. And we are planning a week of action. My thinking on this is that, if we can sort of concentrate our outreach around the Supreme Court race specifically to like a week, that will just let us, get all of everything prepared that we would need to get prepared, and then have a real concentrated push to try to like reach as many voters as we can. And one of the things that I'm hoping will also happen with these events is that we'll have a a toolkit again that we can share with, you know, individuals and organizations, and then they can use in their voter outreach if they want. So those are the things that I'm working on. So as far as that week of action, I would like to get some feedback from y'all, and it will also go out in the newsletter for you know, everybody who gets that. I'd like to understand, you know, what are people interested in doing? What do folks feel like they've got an appetite for and capacity for? The things that are definitely on my radar are, you know, phone banking, particularly just calling people who have engaged with All in the Line in some way. So they've indicated that they care about democracy. They have some interest in fair maps, but they aren't coming to meetings or anything. Calling those folks and talking with them, I think that that's who we would probably, you know, target in our phone banks. But then also do some text banking to voters more broadly and targeted parts of the state, talking about the importance of the Supreme Court elections for fair maps specifically. We could also potentially do some canvassing. I used to canvass a ton. I haven't been doing it lately. We haven't really done it since the pandemic much, but I'm interested to hear if people are interested in that. And then we'll definitely do like some letters to the editor workshop. And I'm still trying to figure out if we're going to do any postcards. But we definitely want folks to be able to reach out to their, you know, friends and family and talk about these Supreme Court races in particular. So those are the things that are coming up. Any questions about any of that or feedback? So I'm going to drop in the chat the interest form that I'm also going to include in the newsletter. It's really, you know, it's not a commitment. It's just a, like, you know, I'm potentially interested in, you know, joining a phone bank or a text bank, or the other thing that I would like, I'd like to know if people are interested in helping with is developing that toolkit that we would share at the events and, you know, through our channels to develop, you know, like content. We've had some conversations in this space about like, how do we talk about the Supreme Court race? What, you know, how do we get the message out there, you know, in a clear way, and something that that's repeatable about the Supreme Court race to really drive it home and get that message out. So if anyone's interested in thinking more about that with me or working on the toolkit, there's also a place in that forum to indicate that. So that's out there. Would love to just kind of know where y'all are at and what folks are interested in. And again, and the other thing that I'm working on is we had this, you know, during the redistricting cycle. I know Karen was trained on it and did some presentations, but I'm going to put together a slide deck that just talks about where we are with the maps and how the Supreme Court race is important for fair representation and fair maps going forward. And that's something that folks could, you know, a presentation that you could give to, if you're part of like a book club or a church group, or I was thinking about, you know, I was talking to my neighbor about it and he was like, we should do a lunch and learn down at the park. And I was like, yes, we should do that. Cause it's really just like, we can have, you know, get a small group together and just make sure that folks who are going to be voting in November have the information that they need. Great. All right. Okay, so that is everything that I had planned. I realize I've actually been talking for quite a long time now. That's everything that I had kind of planned for tonight. But I'd love to open it up and hear what other folks are thinking about, or any feedback on anything that we've talked about tonight.
Jean has her hand up.
Hi, Jean. Oh, you're muted, I think, Jean. Jean, can you unmute?
There we go.
There you are.
Yeah, in the way of announcements, I wanted to let everyone know, and this all kind of goes back along with Supreme Court. Of course, it was the United States Supreme Court, on the Roe v. Wade subject.
Mhm.
I'm the VP of legislation for ERA North Carolina Alliance. And we sent out 450 postcards to candidates and also to the other senators and congressmen who have to see what their opinion was on equal rights for women. And out of that, we got 30 responses. And yeah, I mean, that's just terrible, from 450 down to 30 as far as a response. So we started a project, it's called ERA Certified. And we're going to actually be reaching out to each and every candidate and current office holders to see what their feelings are. And we're putting together a project to educate people on how important the judges are at whatever level they are, how important the judges are. So, you know, because that could be something that comes up to North Carolina Supreme Court. So we're working on an education program to let people know how important it is on your judges and know who you're voting for, what they stand for, because it's so important. So that's something that we're working on along those lines.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Are you in North Carolina?
I am. I live in Spring Lake.
Oh, okay, great. So y'all are working on educating about like all of the judicial races?
All of the judicial races, yeah.
Awesome. I would love to like talk with you, maybe share resources, because I feel like, and maybe there's even something we could share on those calls, especially the judicial forum. Like, I feel like you're right, like understanding all of the judicial races and what they mean, and I think it's really hard for people even to figure out how to research those candidates.
Mhm.
They don't run the
Right.
same way that politicians run, but often they are.
Right.
They have records, and I'd be really curious what y'all are putting together. That's great.
Okay, sure, we can talk offline on that. That would be great.
I'm intrigued by the toolkits you're talking about putting together for, like lunch and learn in your neighborhood, or for congregations or schools or different groups. It seems to me that some of those contexts need to have nonpartisan information and some don't. So would there be two different toolkits, or?
I think so. We are, we're a 501c4. We are focused on, for All on the Line, we have affiliates who are going to be doing more partisan work, but we are basically focusing on like the nonpartisan side of this. And
Okay.
so I think that the toolkit would be nonpartisan in terms of like, just letting people know like what are the issues that are going to come up. We won't talk about it in a super partisan way. I think that we could definitely, like on a case-by-case basis, figure out if there's like, certain things we need to be aware of depending on the group, but I expect that the toolkit will be nonpartisan. It will just be
I'm cool with superficially nonpartisan, like if you're in favor of letting women die.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
This way,
unfortunately, like democracy is a partisan issue now. So I don't know how to
gotten harder.
do that.
For anybody who's thinking about hosting some of those types of sessions, I will share my experience doing the redistricting kind of primer and representable maps presentation, which is, I would highly recommend that you say, this is the time and place, join if you want to. rather than going to a church committee, for example, or a Rotary Club committee and saying, do you want to have me come and speak at your meeting? Because what I found was with volunteer groups like that, there were a couple of them that I spent probably, I'm not kidding, like 6 hours talking to one organization about, you know, is it too partisan? Is it going to offend people? You can't use this word. You need to use that word and all that crap, just to have them say, no, we don't want to do it. So I would say, you know, tell them August 18th at 6 p.m. Here's the link. Send it to your people if you want to, and leave it at that. Bree, there was a technical question in the chat from Pat about sending for future meetings, sending the meeting ID and password in addition to the link as an easier way to get in.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, so that wasn't in the email I sent, the last email, like the reminder email. I thought I put the entire like invitation, which that should have been in there, but you probably had to search for it. So I can try to highlight that better instead of just putting the whole thing in there. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate those technical details because I like that feedback of this helps me enter the meeting. I don't always know if I don't say it. So thank you for mentioning that.
I do spell that in the message from an hour from 5 p.m. today. I don't know about other messages though.
Yeah, that's where I definitely thought I put it. It may have been in an earlier one too, but it should have been when you signed up. I think it was included in the like email that you got confirming that you signed up, but a good flag, and I'll try to make sure that that's highlighted going forward. Any other questions or things that folks would like to chat about while we're here?
Just curious, I see 23 people in the meeting, and as far as I can tell, all but 1 or 2 are women. Where are the men?
It's a good question. I noticed that too.
Surprise.
Hmm.
I don't know. We usually do have a few men. We tend to be a women heavy group, but I don't know. Maybe they're busy this time. I like being in a group full of women, so it's okay with me. But yeah, it's funny. I see hands. Helen.
Hey, Bree. Good evening, everyone. Glad to be with you. Sorry not to be on camera. It's crazy at my house at the moment. Can I ask a question for all on the line as an organization? I know you're the state North Carolina component part of a national organization. Are they doing polling? And most specifically, are they going to be doing polling in North Carolina that will drive both your messaging and your focus?
Yes. So All on the Line as an organization is not doing polling, but our affiliate is doing polling. We have we're an affiliate of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. So we have 501c3s and 501c4s and other affiliates. And there is polling being done by one of our affiliates. I believe that they are in the field now, and it's nationwide. So I'm not sure what specifically they're doing in North Carolina. But I do have some, I have seen some polling that was done in North Carolina. So I will, Helen, I will be happy to, I'll email you and maybe we can touch base next week and I can share what I've got. And I'll also ask All on the Line if we know of anything else that's coming down the pipe on that.
That would be great. And it's not that all of these ideas aren't wonderful. The problem is if we're not directed in a way that we know is going to be impactful, then excuse the French, we're pissing in the wind.
Yeah, totally.
And so you have on this call some amazingly talented, dedicated, powerful women in the state of North Carolina. And I think to be very directed in what they're doing, you will make a difference. But to chop and change and everybody do a little bit of this and everybody do a little bit of that. I know in the work that we're doing, we are trying to be very directed because we cannot allow Sherry Beasley to lose by 401 votes again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Wonderful to be
Yeah.
with all of you. Thank you all for all of your hard work.
Yeah, thanks for flagging that. Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons that I do want to get some feedback in the forum is figuring out, like, we don't want to be doing, you know, like you said, a little bit of everything not well. So, and we have seen some polling. We do have some messaging guidance that's just starting to come in, based on some polling and some other work that's been done in North Carolina. So we will be implementing that very soon. And I would love to know what folks are kind of interested in, and feedback like that, like ideas like that, feedback like that is really helpful too, for me to plan. All right, anything else we should chat about, or feedback, thoughts, ideas? All right. Well, it is 10 till. I appreciate everyone being here. We will be sending out a newsletter in the next couple of days. And Helen, I will follow up with you, and you too, Jean. And please go ahead and, you know, if you can fill out, or the form, fill out the form. Let me know what folks are interested in. There's also an other place. So if you have other ideas or feedback, things like that, we will definitely take that into consideration while we're figuring out, you know, like the exact program for the week of action, and how to put together a content and toolkit that we can use to get the word out about these Supreme Court races. And you know, you're right, we cannot let Sherry Beasley lose by 400 votes. And we have a lot of races that we, you know, oh, the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, I know there's folks on this call from various organizations, including, you know, Helen from the New Rural Project and others who are doing voter outreach in, you know, and constituent outreach, talking to folks in communities. And, you know, we're going to do what we can, but also there's a lot of other organizations who are doing like direct voter outreach right now in a way that we don't have the scale to do. So I'm trying to think about the thing that All on the Line can do to the smartest possible way that we can really like fill the niche of getting the word out about the Supreme Court races. And there's a lot of other organizations like the New Rural Project, the New North Carolina Project, Down Home North Carolina, you know, Democracy NC does incredible work on protecting democracy, and there's a lot of other organizations. So if you are part of an organization that's doing work and you want us to include that, I'll definitely include that information and encourage people to go volunteer in newsletter and other ways that we have our other channels. I saw a hand. Viola, hi.
Hi, I have just a quick question, and thanks. This is always very informative. In Georgia, the new Georgia Project did have a hand or a foot or whatever in the naturalization.
Oh, Viola, you're paused. You broke up. She was asking a question about the new Georgia Project, but I couldn't hear it. Did anybody else hear
For
it?
example, help.
Viola,
Sure.
I'm sorry, Viola, can you repeat the question? You were breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my internet is not strong. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, my question was in the New Georgia project helps register voters at naturalization ceremonies. That was before COVID, and we haven't done it since then, I have to admit. But I wonder if there's anything similar going on in North Carolina.
I don't know about that specifically. I do know that the drawing a blank on the name. You Can Vote does, you're probably aware of them. There's an organization called You Can Vote that does a ton of voter registration. And I don't know whether they do it at naturalization ceremonies. I think that's a great idea that I hope
Yeah,
someone's doing.
I thought it was wonderful. I enjoyed doing that. It was mutually fun, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the new citizens were excited and they were very glad to immediately get, we would send in their certificate, a copy of their certificate and their registration form. And it was great. It was very helpful. And it was wonderful to be able to help people to vote that were, that were just new citizens. So
I would reach out to You Can Vote. Are you familiar with them?
no,
If you would email me, I will connect you with Kate, or one of the folks that works with her at You Can Vote. And I think that they would know. And if they don't, they might be interested in having someone do that, or if you
Yeah,
wanted to volunteer for them.
I don't know if that only happens in Charlotte or if there are naturalization ceremonies in other parts of North Carolina. That I'm not even aware of. But I can find out by reaching out to You Can Vote, I guess, right? youcanvote.org.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're great. They're amazing.
All
They do
right.
great work, and they follow up with the people that they register to make sure that they have the information. That
Yeah,
they need.
exactly. That's a good important part too. And then but I did see that you somewhere along your presentation, the new North Carolina project also popped up. Has that been launched? Is that working?
Yeah, it has been launched. It is, you can see if you go to our Mobilize page, you can see where we promote their stuff. And if anybody else, Helen, if anyone else has a Mobilize page and wants to cross promote, we would love to promote events from other organizations. But they are doing voter registration, and they are also doing voter outreach, as is the New Rural Project, which Helen Probst Mills, who's on this call, is one of the leaders of, and they're also doing that in counties along the North Carolina, South Carolina border. And there's some stuff in the chat from Helen about what they're finding, which is super interesting, and the work they're doing is really amazing. So check them out, the newruralproject.org as well.
The new world.
Rural, a word I
Rural.
can't say.
Well,
Rural juror.
I can't either. I can't do the R. I have to fake it. So anyway, okay.
Pat, I see your hand, Pat. Oh, you're muted, Pat.
There we go. There we go. I got it.
Yeah.
That's why I like to be on the computer, because on the phone, I'm not so good. But at any rate, this is maybe a dumb question, and I hate to ask dumb questions, but I'm in District 13, which is the new district. And so we've got Ted Budd and Wiley Dickel running. And what happens, like, we have this election in November and one of them wins, hopefully Nickel. And then they redraw the maps. How's that going to work? If they redraw everything, whoever's elected, do they get to stay in until the next election?
So when they redraw the maps, the current person will serve out the term under the current map. So the current maps for the purposes of representation will be essentially in effect until 2024. But then in 24, they will run under the new maps. So depending on what the new maps look like, they could get, you know, like, so say Wiley Nickel wins. I believe that the Republican running there is Bo Hines. Ted Budd is running for Senate.
Oh, that's right.
he's-
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes,
That's
I get
okay.
everything all confused.
I
You're
mean,
right.
me too.
You're right.
But yeah, so whoever wins there would represent that area until 2024, but then they could get, you know, drawn out of the district, or they could get double bunked with someone. Like Wiley Nickel lives in Wake County. If he wins, he could get double bunked with whoever represents the other part of Wake County, if that makes sense.
What does double bunked mean?
It
What does
means
that mean?
two candidates or two potential candidates are drawn into the same district. So like if there's two Democrats that are currently serving, they could get drawn into the same district and have to run against each other in a primary.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good question. All right. I don't see any more hands. I think that that's everything. So thank you all very much. Please go ahead and register for any of the events that you want to come to. Register for that judicial forum and spread the word about that. I will, let me see if I can pop it back. Oh, I never stopped sharing my screen. I'm dumb. But let me see if I can just the August 18th meeting in the chat. Hopefully my goal is for at that meeting for us to really be ready to roll out some, you know, content and messaging. And if anyone was interested in collaborating on that, please fill out that form or just email me and let me know. Okay.
Are you going to, when you send the newsletter or the recording, is the chat remarks on there too?
I don't usually include the chat remarks, but I will see if I can include them.
At least the ones that are important in terms of information that, you know, can be passed on.
All of that will be, yeah, all of that. It won't be in the form of the chat, but yeah, that everything that we linked in here. I'll see if I can pull out any links that were dropped by y'all too. And yeah, that will all be in the newsletter. All right. I hope everyone has a good evening, good weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for doing this. It's really a big, wonderful service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all.
Have a good
Good night.
month. See you next month.
See you next month. Bye, y'all.